Welcome to Sequential Geek. Greetings. Welcome to Comic Book Haul 69, Part 50. Just went over to Vision Comics and Oddities, my regular local comic book shop I've been going out to. They have their own little anthology that they sell. Comes out quarterly, Odd Mausoleum. So picked up a copy of this. I showed the interiors. Just wanted to show off some local artists, creators that I'm supporting. Odd Mausoleum from Vision Comics and Oddities. Check out this shop just southwest of Denver. If you're ever in town, highly recommend it. Another new comic I got is issue 4 of 4, Blade in the Dark. I've showed off the interiors of issue number 1. Now that it's ended, I can read it in its entirety. Scout Comics has been just knocking some out of the park, setting up a good name for themselves. Paper stock's all right. So this is written by Morgan Quaid. Willie Roberts is doing the covers and the interiors, and they haven't been all that excessive trying to milk the variant cover market, I've noticed. There are a few variants, but it's not like how Image, Marvel, and DC just try and milk more variants than they do trying to sell comics, it seems like. This just seems very beautifully illustrated. And it's a vengeance story. This guy's village was decimated. He's like the only sole survivor. He's got this like little goblin dude hanging out with him on his back. So, looking forward to checking this out. Looks fucking dope. Blade in the Dark, issue 4 of 4. Next up, Fearless Dawn, issue 3 of 4. I've shown some of this Steve Mannion goodness before in the past. It's from Asylum Press. Very kick-ass. Yeah, Fearless Dawn, da bomb. Steve Mannion, written and illustrated. Let's check out a few pages, shall we? And we've got ourselves a third printing of Greg and, was it F-A-K-E, Fake? Two brothers, Greg and Fake. This is their adult-themed, campy, humorous comic book, Santos Sisters. As far as I know, it's ongoing. It's their imprint, American Nature Comics Group, but it's printed out of Floating World Comics. Check out Floating World Comics website for more goodness on this. I'll put a link in the description. Santos Sisters, finally a comic for Generation X. That's me. Newsprint pages, but they still got the price over at $6. 56 pages though, and given the price, no ads. 56 pages, no advertisements. In America, I think this style is known as, oh, that's like an Archie comic. This is known as Ligne-Claire. Ligne-Claire. Yeah, Ligne-Claire, whatever. It's ultimately, there's two schools of thought, schools of styles that came out as far as popularity in the 40s out of France and Belgium. These Franco-Belgian magazines. One of them, Tintin, had the comic book by Hergé, Tintin, the Tintin comic book. That style, clean lines, no cross-hatching, bright colors, really clean lines, really definitive way people are portrayed, kind of cartoony, right? But ultimately, this is called Ligne-Claire, like Archie. Now, there was another school of thought that came out at the same time. It was called either Marcinelle or Charleroi. It's named after the area that the style came out. This is actually just like a technical term ligna claire, clear lines. But the other school of thought was from a competing magazine. It was competing with Tintin, called Spirou, and it had a comic book strip called Ajax. And that style is based off of like Walt Disney Comics. And that was called a couple of names, named after the area, either Charleroi or Marcinelle. So that Marcinelle school of thought, Ajax school of style is based off of Walt Disney, and then the Ligna Claire is based off of the comic book strips from the United States just before the comic book was invented. FYI. And check out this like fun, humorous, like adult themed comic book about a couple of Latina superheroes, Santos Sisters. Another Ligna Claire style, that's why I was kind of pushing that, because I knew it had a couple that are coming up on top of Santos Sisters, this modern comic. Here we have now underground comic. This is Cherry Pop-Tart. Was originally called Cherry Pop-Tart for the first 2 issues, but because of Pop-Tart, right, that like food, breakfast treat, the copyright had a cease and desist, so they had to name the comic from issue 3 onwards to just Cherry. The comic book started in 1982 and then lasted until 2019. Written and drawn by Larry Welts. So I think there were some strips that this was originally appearing in, because it says 1977 right here. L. Welts. So this is just a fun comic about enjoying sex when you're young, and that's it. It's issue 1 and 2 from 1982, like I said, to 2019. Underground comic scene. This is a classic staple of your indie DIY origin. Just an early founding comic of the underground movement by Larry Welts, who's originally from California, went up to Northern Cali to be part of that whole DIY underground comic books movement. And I think since the 80s, I'm not sure since when, but Larry Welts has been living in New Mexico. So he's a Southwest resident. Hasn't done any Cherry comics since 2019. And these are second printings. You can tell, although here it does say copyright 1982 when the comic book started, but it's $2.50. I think the first printing is $2. FYI. Couple of risque comics for your Ligna Claire pleasure. Cherry Pop-Tart 1 and 2. Woo-wee. Another back issue I got. This is out of 2013, Multiple Warheads. So I'm in Denver. You know, I like to check out local artists, and there's this local artist that I've shown off. I've shown off this Ignatz nominated comic book called Infinite Wheat Paste. And the style is just like this. Comic book that involves like some modern fashion and some sex and stories about relationships and humor, and just really like this Pidge creator. And I found out recently now that Pidge is actually Brandon Graham. Pretty sure. So I don't know if Brandon Graham is from Colorado, but he's been living in the Denver area for a minute, making these Infinite Wheat Paste comics under the alias PIDG, Pidge. So if you're a big fan of these Warhead comics, Brandon Graham style, check out Infinite Wheat Paste. For some reason, he uses the pen name Pidge for that other comic book. That's more recent work of Brendan Graham under that alias Pidge. But just going to be looking forward to checking out this sci-fi comic. Multiple Warheads, Downfall. Yeah, 2013. Super interesting. Yeah, really dug Infinite Wheat Paste. So check out Infinite Wheat Paste if you ever get yourself a chance. Yeah, check out Infinite Wheat Paste if you ever get a chance. Definitely some adult themed stuff going on in here. But I dig the style. This guy's portraying. I dig Al Milgrom. Can't say I was a big fan of Al Milgrom when this comic book originally came out. Al Milgrom and Steve Englehart, the writer, they teamed up for West Coast Avengers for like the first 38 issues. I know Al Milgrom was on this doing artwork until John Byrne took over with issue 42. Tom Morgan did a couple issues towards the end, but it's been Steve Englehart and Al Milgrom together pretty much up until John Byrne took over the comic with issue 42. This is from 1988, and I just got this because I thought it's a fucking cool Doom cover by Al Milgrom. The man who would be Doom. Oh, yeah. And I just, for the 80s, Marvel with their new universe and just their advancements in progressing their storytelling, maintaining everything within the mythology, and it just kept the wheel turning. And it just felt like comics were moving, superhero comics were advancing, the demographic was broadening. It just seemed like there was all this great stuff that was going on. But then by like 1988, they were nursing that. It's just the spec bubble. Everybody was a mutant, and first issue this, first issue that, and then just inking. People were cutting the corners. My point is that it was turning me off, and I just found this style to be really flat and kind of bland at the time. Now that I'm older and I like to think of myself a little bit more accomplished reader, I still agree with what I was saying back then. But as a whole, taking now comics as a whole, reading everything throughout different decades and eras of the industry, I don't mind it as much. But yeah, I definitely empathize with readers that are expecting a certain style or dig a certain style, or they think that comics are becoming a little bit more bland and stuff. I think you're justified in saying that. There's nothing negative about it. I think that things should be able to improve by pointing out what you like and what you don't like. And the reason people get frustrated and being called negative a lot lately is because a lot of those calls for improvements are just ignored. People are subsidized the past 10, 15 years more and more often than not. So they don't have to listen to criticism. Looking back, like I said, as a whole, this is really fun. But I also think that even though there looks like there's a lot of detail and some work that Al Milgrom put in this issue, I've also found Al Milgrom, though, to have taken on a lot of work by the late 80s. Not just illustrating, but inking. So it seemed like Al Milgrom had been overworked. So he'd been cutting some corners now and then, more often than not, by the late 80s. So I think that's one of the reasons why I was turned off by him. This particular issue looks like it's kicking ass, and I'm psyched for it. But that's my say on the 80s. Ooh, we got some Khonshu appearance here. Oh, yeah. That's cool. Nice. So, yeah, Al Milgrom, now. He's got some great shit. And I think there's a lot of people from the 80s that have been overlooked. And, the reason Al Milgrom got overworked was because he had a great work ethic and he had a unique style. So keep an eye out for him. Something that stands out from the 80s. Copper Age goodness. And I'm loving that Doom cover. A little bit more modern back issue. Got this one in the mail. Speaking of the whole spec bubble and, just quantity over quality, this baby came out in 2006, all right? And this one came out in March 2002. And this is all part of that whole new Marvel era, NU Marvel. I know I push it all the time, right? Like, this comic is from the 80s. This is, my first era of collecting from 79 to 89. And then this is my next era of collecting from like the year 2000, 2005. I've returned from 2016 up until recently. I just ended my recent third time returning to the hobby as far as spending money on the reg. So this got me back to spending money on the reg with comics. A couple of newsstand copies. We had the ratio to direct edition was at 5% newsstand by the year 2000. And then 2005, this is 2006, it was like 2.5% were newsstand. And the first appearance of Marvel Zombies is Ultimate Fantastic Four issue number 21. So that was like the Ultimate Fantastic Four meeting the Marvel Zombie version of the Fantastic Four was issue 21. And now they return as of this issue, and this is just a fucking dope cover. If you ever find any trade paperbacks that have Mark Millar and Greg Land teaming up, there's at least 2 of them, of like, you know, the thinner trade paperbacks, regular edition, that hold like 6 or 7 issues. There's like a couple of those. Read them. They're real fun, real well read, classic Fantastic Four books, solid reads. This Ultimate Fantastic Four volume was kicked off by Warren Ellis. Those stories are okay, but when Millar and Land took over, fun, classic Fantastic Four reads. Good stuff. Right here, you had the direct edition, and then you had the newsstand edition. That's it, March 2002. They were bringing people back into comics, modernizing the Avengers. This first 2 volumes of Ultimates 1 and 2, they made an animated movie called Ultimate Avengers and then Ultimate Avengers 2. And the second one, what takes place in Wakanda, there's a 2-disc set. Check out the interviews in that 2-disc set for Ultimate Avengers 2. The interviews with the artist Brian Hitch and the writer Mark Millar. They talk about techniques, ideas they had in mind for modernizing the Avengers. One example I'll say real quick was how they wanted to incorporate materials from either like sports gear or like military equipment to incorporate in their look to make it seem more realistic, more modern. And then aspects of characterization that they built upon, like just him being a man out of time, building upon him being from the 40s, kind of returning to that aspect of his character. A lot of this stuff that I'm emphasizing with these Ultimate comics and the new Marvel era, that NU Marvel era from like 2000, 2005, give or take a year, is that this is the last time comic books were based off of other comic books. And it's the year 2024, so we're now talking 20 years now that the event has taken over comics. 20 years that variant covers, the variant has taken over comics. Okay. These are comics that are based off of other comic book stories. They don't do that anymore. That's why I like that new Marvel era. A lot of the movies and the stories are based off of these attempts to modernize these superheroes, which took place right here. Low print run. People didn't really start buying comics again until around like 2005, 2006, when the events started taking off with Civil War, right after House of M. So that's like when this was going on. So here we got a direct edition and a newsstand. And then, a few years later, this is the direct edition, the newsstand. You have the Arthur Sidium, you have the black and white, then you have the black and white of this. This isn't even the first appearance of the zombies. And they got that many covers for an Ultimate comic, right? That really after Millar and Land, this was done. They made Reed Richards end up becoming a villain, this Ultimate version, the Maker, I think. And then that's it. After this Greg Land, Mark Millar run, that's when you had Ultimatum, and you just had some waste of talent, right? David Finch, Ultimatum, that Marvel Ultimatum comic book, what a waste. David Finch, they had David Finch for an entire limited series for this Ultimate line, that Ultimatum bullshit. What a waste of David Finch's talent. Gotta say it. You can't improve shit unless you're able to point stuff out. And there's some great stuff, some really positive things that I've been saying about modernizing characters, bringing people back to spending money that had nothing to do with variant comics. And then by the time this came out, I was out. I was done. I was 2000 to like 2004, 2005. And then with all the variants and the events, I said, see ya. And I came back and started specking on stuff in 2016. When the seller sent me this comic, they included this King Spawn. How fucking cool is that? This McFarlane cover. Let's wrap this up. A couple of James O'Barr Crow buys. It's an interesting aspect of collecting. I don't know, another form of comic book collecting are these comic shop news. They're in these newsprint, so they're easy to damage. They wear and tear more, very disposable. And it's an alternative to the cover buy. I like to think of it long term, maybe as more of, my spec, but maybe as a more collectible type of buy because they wear out. I got this whole set right here because of this one comic. It's my second copy of Comic Shop News issue 235. And this is from 1992 when Tundra Press was reprinting James O'Barr's Crow comics from Caliber Press when they were first printed. Tundra Press had a 3-issue Crow comic. The first 2 issues reprinted Caliber Comics, James O'Barr's The Crow. Issues 1 and 2 were in the first issue, 3 and 4 in the second issue, and then the fifth issue of Caliber Comics Crow is the next issue of Tundra Comics. 3-issue series. So that third issue, the final one of Tundra Comics The Crow, is actually the 5th issue of James O'Barr's Caliber Comics The Crow. You continue it in that 3rd issue of Tundra Comics The Crow, if you want to think of it like that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Send your fan art in. So this is 1991. O'Barr's back in 92. Comic Shop News. And then the rest of these just came with it. I think one of them is, okay, here's a Biz. The Biz, baby. Right there. And there should be a Aliens one coming up. Yeah. So there we go. These 3 right here are the main reasons for me getting the stack. Sam Keith illustration of Wolverine promoting his entries into the Marvel Comics Presents anthology. For all you James O'Barr Crow fans, so we got issue 235 right here. There's also Comic Shop News issue 463, which shows the cover of Dead Time on the cover here. Out of 1996, and then 482 out of 1996, a Comic Shop News has the cover of Flesh and Blood on it. All you James O'Barr Crow fans, completists, keep an eye out for those Comic Shop News. Motor City Comic Con. This is from 2014, their 25th anniversary special. I have several copies of this. I decided to get this one, another one. It's 2024. It's the 30-year anniversary of the Crow movie. Rest in peace, Brandon Lee. What a loss. So this came out 20 years after the movie. Nice exclusive piece of artwork by James O'Barr. For all you James O'Barr collectors, keep an eye out for this Motor City Comic Con guide. I wonder if James O'Barr is going to be doing a program guide this year. 20 years from the movie, and here we are, another 30. So, who knows? I'm still waiting for that new, the Crow trailer to drop. This is awesome. This is fucking cool. Oh, I like little exclusive stuff by James O'Barr, stuff that people don't know about, off the beaten path type things you don't normally see. That's that. Thank you so much for visiting my hall. Much love. Appreciate you swinging by again. If you're a new reader, viewer, checking out my channel for the first time, please drop a comment. Let me know what you think. If you're a returning subscriber, much appreciated. Keep on collecting, keep on reading. Peace.